Welcome to the Profile Corner. In today's video, I'm going to start working on another corner of my shop. Not all of the corners in my shop are as neatly organized as is the profiling corner. And so I've got a corner of the shop that has a number of clamps that are all over the place. And also I've got some 5x5 sheets of Baltic Birch Plywood that are sitting about 4 inches off the shop floor. And so those 5x5 sheets of plywood all by themselves are taking up 25 square feet of floor space. And also I've got a large box of sandpaper that I bought with my drum sander many years ago. And that's also taking up at least 4 square feet of shop floor space. So I've got to get that corner of the shop organized better. And what I thought I would do first is to start out by creating some sort of a upright cart to hold the sheets of Baltic Birch Plywood, and then I can have that cart pushed up against the wall so that now the sheets are stored vertically and maybe only taking up 5 square feet of shop floor space instead of 25 square feet. The design that I'm thinking about implementing for the cart looks something like what I've got drawn on the sheet of paper here. The cart will be 5 feet long, and it'll be just over 5 feet tall. There'll be casters on the bottom. And here's a side view. The one end of the cart will have diagonal braces, like you're seeing there. And then the top-down view, there would be a couple boards laying down to the bottom there that the plywood will rest on. And the boards here will have rounded over edges so that it'll be easy to slide the sheets of plywood in from the end and then hopefully be able to pull back out when they're needed. Some of the plywood is 18 millimeter. That's roughly 3/4 of an inch thick. Other sheets of plywood are closer to 5/8 inch or 1/2 inch thick. There may also be some 1/4 inch Baltic Birch plywood in the stack. Most of those plywood sheets came from an auction many years ago and have just been sitting a couple inches off the floor. So I'm hoping that this cart will help. The cart will have upright beams that are mortise and tenon into other boards. These boards will also be mortise and tenon together. And so what I'm thinking that I'll do is I'll take some of my 4/4 rough sawn oak boards that I've got sitting in a stack, and I'll laminate some of those boards after their surface 4 sides, and that'll make some 1.5 inch thick material that I can use for the baseboards down here. These boards will also probably be 1.5 inch thick, as well as maybe these boards here. The cross braces, I may be able to make those from 3/4 inch thick material. So I've got to get started now by milling up some of that 4/4 rough sawn oak and see what's usable and what's not usable. I'll have to run a metal detector over the 4/4 boards first before I run it over the jointer, just to make sure that none of the wood has any embedded metal in it, because I don't want to damage the knives in the jointer or in the planer. So I'll head over to the wood stack now, start picking out some boards, and then I'll check those boards for metal. I'm not sure how many of these boards in the stack I'll need to use. Some of the boards have splits in them as well as the pith of the board, so I'll have to work around that. And also some of these have a little bit of bug damage here and there. So first of all, I've got to get started by checking them for metal. As you can see here, it's detecting my watch, so it does work. Okay, for the final board that I had to check, the metal detector is apparently alerting on this area here is containing metal. I don't know where exactly in that area. It's not alerting apparently in this section here. So the problem is probably up in this area here that I need to take care of, or take caution. I'm not sure if I can find that. There is a little bit of a cut here. I'm not sure if the metal is in that cut area or if it's somewhere else. I'll do some digging and see what I can find. Okay, I cut off the one section here. It is alerting on the spot right here, but now I'm testing out this board and it's also alerting on something else. It looks like it's complaining about something down in this area here. It seems to be alerting on this area right here. It's bumped up a little bit. So maybe what I can do is I can cut that out too. It looks like I didn't cut it quite deep enough here. This is a good job for the little hammer. Okay, it looks like I got it. It was in this little piece right here. Okay, and also in the other piece that we cut off here. And now I'm not picking up any kind of a metal reading down on this board. Okay, next up I gotta scrape off the Boracare that's coating these boards, and then I can run them through the joiner. some of the boards did not clean up all the way on the jointer. I don't want to take off too much more material on this one face, so I'll take it over to the planer, try to get the other side flat using the reference surface here, and then I can take this down on the planer, which has carbide tip knives, so I'm not decreasing the life of the steel knives in this jointer. I'll do that off camera. After running all those boards through the jointer and the planer, we've got several decent looking boards here, as well as some that don't look quite so good. Most of these boards are at least 6 feet long, and in some cases they're a little bit over 7 feet long. The stack that's in front of me is almost 8 inches wide. The next stack, which has 5 boards in it, is 6 inches wide. The next stack, which has 4 boards in it, is about 11 inches wide, and then I've got a small board over here that I can use. Next, what I need to do is a straight line rip. This board, because it had too much curvature in it for me to be able to clean it up at the joiner, I was only able to take off the very ends of the board, and then I decided that I was essentially wasting my time trying to do that because of the amount of curvature in the board. So I'll take this over to the table saw and straight line rip it next. I have the board mounted into the straight line rip jig. Now we're ready to go ahead and cut off this edge. I've developed a cut list here for the different parts, and what I'm noticing is that this is going to be a very heavy cart even without any plywood loaded onto it, and it could very well be a top heavy cart, which would not be good for stability. I think what I'm going to do here to start out is by cutting a straight edge on the opposite side of the boards from what I jointed, so that at least I've got 2 straight edges, so that I've got the boards S4S, and then I'll make some changes potentially to the plan to make it so that it's not going to be quite so heavy of a cart without any plywood on it. Now that the boards have surfaced 4 sides, that's probably a good stopping point for this video. We'll pick up part 2 in a couple days when we cut the parts out and then we start gluing them together. And we'll have a number of mortise and tenon joints to create at that time. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.